I have it, but if you have it too, great.
I got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you everybody for joining today's meeting. It's August 21st. This is the LF Decentralized Technical Advisory Council meeting. Everybody has been on this call before, so you all know the rules, but we do have to repeat them. The first is our antitrust policy, so we just need to be aware of and not participate in any activities that are prohibited under any of the antitrust and competition laws across the world. The second thing that we have to abide by is our code of conduct, which in general says that everybody is welcome here, but we do need to abide by the code of conduct, which is linked in the agenda and basically says to be respectful of others and their opinions and ideas, and we should get all along fine. Jessica, if you wouldn't mind just removing the note taker apps, as we do have a recording of this. We don't need note taker apps on this recording. That would be great. All right, for announcements today, we have the standard Dev Weekly developer newsletter that goes out each Friday. If you do have anything that you would like to be included in that newsletter, please do leave a comment for consideration on the wiki page that is linked here in the agenda. And then I know there was another, it's not quite an announcement, but it is something that I think is semi-announcement like. Matthew, I think that was you had a request for us to see if we could move the meeting for the Project Consistency Task Force.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. Yeah, it's really just an administrative question. We have those scheduled every 2 weeks, and delaying them obviously means quite a gap between them. I just happen to have a work commitment that means I can't do tomorrow's time, and I don't want to give people very short notice for those changes in time. But at the same time, I would quite like to have the call rather than wait another 2 weeks. So it was really just if that is something people would be happy with. I don't believe I have the control of that calendar, or at least I didn't create it initially. I think Rye did.
Yeah, Matt, if you just ping me on Discord with or Jessica with the details, we can change it for you.
That would be great. Thank you very much, David.
And Matthew, just remind us what time and day is that meeting now going to be?
It's on a Friday, and it's at this time on a Friday. And I was going to ask that it moves an hour earlier tomorrow just to avoid a work commitment, a prior commitment.
Okay, so 6 a.m. Pacific time then is what you're asking for tomorrow.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so anybody who is part of that Project Consistency Task Force, if you just want to let Matthew know whether or not you'll be able to attend, that would be great.
Great, I'll make that change. And it's just for tomorrow, not for the whole series?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a one-off clash.
Great, okay, sure, I'll go do that.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other announcements that anybody has or would like to make today? No, okay. So then for reports, we do have 4 quarterly reports that, at least as when I put this together on Monday, we hadn't had enough reviews for. So if you are still needing to review any of the quarterly reports, please do have a look at those and leave any comments that you might have. I also have not seen any comments of things that we should talk about at the TAC call, but if there is anything, please do bring that up now. Okay, then for overdue reports, Arun, I think we've got a number of reach outs that we have to do for people. So if you wouldn't mind just reaching out to these folks. And yeah, I also didn't see anything from Wenjing around people to contact for trust over IP and getting them to do a readout to the TAC. So I'll follow up with Wenjing and see if I can get the names of people I need to follow up with.
Yeah, Tracy.
All
I
right,
did-
yeah, go ahead, Arun.
Oh, just a call out. So I did reach out to all the projects listed here, which were due for submitting their reports. I see a couple of them have acknowledged. For instance, Credible team has acknowledged the request, and Identis team has acknowledged the request. But I haven't seen acknowledgement from others projects and reminders like the Discord reminder that I sent in the past is the last message or latest message in their chat thread. I did reach out to a few of the projects one-on-one directly to maintainers. Still waiting for response from them.
Okay. It might be worth opening up a GitHub issue in the projects that still need to have their reports submitted. Maybe that's a better way to get in touch with the maintainers if they're not responding on Discord, which is not great, but at least, you know, a second mechanism of reaching out might be a good idea.
Sounds good. Sure, Tracy.
All right, great. Thank you. For upcoming reports today, we do have the Hyperledger Firefly report that we expect to see coming in. And then next week, the Besu and the Hyperledger Caliper reports are due. All right, for discussion items today, we do have some updates on the Hyro graduation request. And then also, hopefully we'll get to these other two items today. But yeah, maybe Hendrik, I don't know if you want to share or if you want me to just open this up and share the latest information that you have on the graduation request. Let me know which
Yeah,
way you want to go about that.
both would be fine from my point of
Okay.
view.
Let me go ahead and open
Yeah,
that.
sure.
And then we can just find the information that we need to find here. All right.
Okay, so since we have some illustration, maybe you can switch to this preview mode. Do you
Yep,
know how to do that?
I do. We'll do
Okay,
that.
perfect.
There we go.
And then you can scroll down until this table that has, oh yeah, this one. After this table, scroll a little bit up. After this table is a new part. So below
Okay.
of that table. Okay, so yeah, that is all new. And what we did is, so we took the guideline for graduation and took like the headline out of that guideline and created here a paragraph or a section for each of that headlines, right? So it starts with legal, then we have diversity, releases, testing and QA, security, structure, maintenance, and so on and so on. And yeah, maybe we can just start at the beginning. And some of them are, you know, even are visible in the OpenSSF scorecards, where that is the case, like now in legal directly in the first sentence, we say like, oh yeah, you know, we have it in the OpenSSF scorecards, and for legal, this is that all repositories we have a 10 out of 10 there. Because we have all those legal documents in place and so on, we have from our point of view, very solid README in every project. When it comes to diversity, we added those diagrams that I already added as a command to the pull request last week, where but we added it now here and made clear that we figured out with the help of this Biterja tool that we have over 80 organizations contributing to Hyro, with over 800 contributors, individual contributors who have contributed to Hyro. And here you see like the main companies contributed for sure. I mean, that's just the fact. Hashgraph is still the biggest company, followed by Line Chain, but we have a lot of additional companies that are contributed already to the source code, and that and we know of companies that will contribute in the future, or where the contribution, to mention two, which is DSR or Open Elements, where the contribution will go up over the next weeks and months. When it comes to maintainers, so not just to contributors, it's similar, right? So it's LimeChain and Hashgraph who have the big part here, but it's really great to see that new companies are coming, right? So it's not that it's only Hashgraph and LimeChain who define the maintainers. We have several companies. From those, we now have people being maintainers of our different repositories, and that graph is created by the info we now have of the maintainers MD files that we now have in each and every repository. I know from Jessica that she did that, we needed to do the overview of those maintainers by hand, and she created a pull request. Is it a pull request or no? I think it's an issue against LFX, so that in future such a graph will be part of, hopefully, will be part of LFX too. When it comes to
just to provide quickly a little bit of context there, LFX
sure.
LFX tracks both committers and maintainers as a whole. They have no way to only account for maintainers, so the support request is under progress.
Thank you. So when it comes to releases, we do releases for all our projects. I mean, we have some documentation only projects, right? So like for the highway improvement proposal, so for that one, it makes 0 sense to do any release, and I dislike to have a good OpenSSF score to do a release for a repo where it don't make sense. But for all other repositories, we do regular releases, and that does not only mean that we create tags. For most repositories, this means that we even publish artifacts to repositories like Crates.io, PyPy, Maven Central, or NPM, to mention some examples, which ends for releases again for us in a 10 of 10 for the OpenSSF scorecards. Some of them have a question mark. We actually, Jessica, do we know why? I think we don't know why, right? Because several of them do releases, and we have releases for them.
So I know why.
Okay.
I believe the OpenSSF tool is expecting to see the releases available probably as a GitHub package, but several of these releases happen outside of GitHub, and we have a similar issue where it's not able to detect whether there's a signing process for it, but we confirmed yesterday with the release engineering team that they do make their signing of their releases on the other platforms where they distribution platforms, and they as well do signing of tags. So for whatever reason, I don't think so OpenSSF is able to determine whether it's a pass or a fail.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Which brings us to testing and QA. And here it's not the OpenSSF scorecard, but a value that you can get out of LFX. And
GitHub.
Here most
This is not LFX. This is GitHub Insights tool.
GitHub, then we have a typo there, because it said at the moment most scores are at 100% in LFX Insights. Yeah. So some repositories like, again, governance, higher improvement proposals, those are non-code repositories, so testing and QA don't make sense on that, so we can ignore those numbers. And for all our projects, we have CI in place by using GitHub Actions. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see like the average runtime, the failure rate, and all of that from all those repositories. Yeah, okay, it is LFX, right? Yeah, that was what I was thinking, because I looked at that there. Yeah, so it's out of LFX. And yeah, as you can see here, I think the very interesting part is the failure rate, first of all. I mean, we have some projects that have a failure rate. Interestingly, it's the highway improvement proposal that has a 20% failure rate. That is, I don't even know what that is. We can have a look, or we as the highway team can have a look at that. But for the code repositories, it's mostly about 10% or below. And on the other hand, you can see how many jobs have been executed, right? And looking at like this over 250,000 jobs that already have been executed on the highway consensus node, GitHub Actions, and with only 7% of them have been failed, I think that is really a good number here. And I hope that this screenshot of the table shows that we have a lot of testing. I mean, several of those, as you can see, jobs runs for some minutes. That is based on the tests we are doing. And next to having those, over the last half year, we invested in testing by even creating new projects that are used in testing. So one project that we created is a custom GitHub action for Hyro that is setting up a full Hyro-based network within a GitHub action so that SDKs, libraries, and so on can run integration tests against the real network by using CI in GitHub Actions. Yeah, so that's about testing and QA. And when it comes to security, we have our security.
Hey, Hendrik.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just one moment. I saw it in the chat.
Oh, sorry.
Arun, did you wanna bring these up now in the discussion?
Maybe like I'll speak at the end. Maybe I'll let him
Okay,
come.
sounds good. Sounds good. All right, go ahead, Hendrik. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, which brings us to security. So again, we have our security MD that is totally up to date. Everything is linked on the homepage, from the README MD files and so on. And we have a dedicated security team that takes care of any security issues. We have guidelines how security issue workflows are, executed for even for privately issues sent to us and so on. And in the bottom in this table, you can have a look. That is now again based on the OpenSSF scorecard, where you can see the values out of OpenSSF for all the different projects that we have. And here you can see that while for some of them, it's, how to say, like, quite obvious that having a 10 out of 10 is a realistic scenario, like for the dangerous workflows or for the security policies. For others, it's way harder to get this, let's say, like 10 out of 10, like as an example for the branch protection. And here it's not that we say, oh, everybody can commit on any branch, right? So we have a protection for the main branch. We work with pull requests and so on. So I assume that is something where we as a group need to, or maybe together with the OpenSSF team, need to take a better look in on the one hand, why is the number not higher? And on the other hand, is then that a number that we want to have in our guideline as a minimum? My personal opinion is here, having anything higher is not really achievable in general, because we did our best. We have all that in place and at those numbers, right? But just to have them public here and open, because I think that is then afterwards a good base for any upcoming discussions to define a better process for us. When it comes
And
to
Jessica
yeah?
has her hand up.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I don't see that. Jessica.
Sorry, I wanted to add that some of these tools, and I experienced this with LFX as well, some of these tools expect our branch protections to be found, for example, at the repo level, but many of if not everything of our protection rules, there is a very meticulous set of rules that are set as an organization level. So that's why sometimes these detection tools are failing to find protection available, but it's mostly, and I experience a lot this in LFX too, where protection rules are not, for example, DCO is marked as not enforced, but it's because we have it at the organization level instead of a repo level. So I just wanted to make that remark. And for anything that you see, for example, dependency update tools, that is something that the OpenSSF reports do not show in their scores. That's why we put it as a dash. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, as Jessica already said here, so we found some problems, the same we had when it comes to structure, right? There again, we found in the Turing some problems. We had some not so good scores for the SDK collaboration hub, as an example, and we created a ticket for the LFX team with our observations here, because from our point of view, the score or how is it currently shown don't make sense. For all the other projects, everything is good. We have a project structure that is based on the best practices and definitions of LFDT, the best practices coming from GitHub and so on, which means we have a README in every repository, we have contributor guidelines, we have OpenSSF badges, we have a license file, and so on and so on. So all of that is part of our repository, of our repositories. Next one is maintenance, and there we have a 10 out of 10. There's again one project which is a documentation project which has a 5 out of 10, and again for this project it makes totally sense, right? Because in this project we have very long running PRs, because this is for doing specifications, and we do that specification work directly in GitHub, which means somebody creates a PR with an idea, and that is then discussed in a long run, even discussed in the Hiro TRC, in the meetings, and so on. So it makes absolutely sense that we have long-running PRs here, and the time regarding when the PR is merged, and so on. Not as the general best practices are, but for this repository, it just makes sense. And next to a timing, we have meetings, community meetings for all of those, or not for all, but for a lot of projects. So where we allow people to ask questions, and we see that as a point of the maintenance too. Production. So we have a lot of companies who create projects, Turing, and so on, based on Hiro. We already had in the previous version, so like later in that document, concrete examples of products and tools and other projects that are based on Turing of Hiro, next to some projects that used Hiro in the past and that have now been onboarded to be projects directly within Hiro, because we believed it makes sense to do so. When it comes to documentation, here we have in general 3 different points. So one is documentation in repositories. Each repository has a README MD. Some repositories even have like markdown-based documentation directly within the repository. This is mostly documentation for contributors to that repository. For some repositories, we even have examples and usage documentation as markdown within the repositories. Next to that, we have one repo, which is the Hyro Docs repo, that is creating a Gitbook page that is hosted under docs.hyro.org that includes a documentation for all our SDKs on how to set up a Hyro network, what is Hyro, and so on and so on. And the third thing that we have is the hyro.org website that contains some static general information about Hyro, about the TSC, about our community events, and next to that has a blog where we started over the last months to create content. It was first mostly done by Diane and me, who created posts that have been published in the blog. And I'm really happy that we now have the first blog posts coming directly from the community. So, and when talking here from the community, it's not even, there are posts from Hashgraph, yes, but we even have now posts from individual people who are working, as an example, on the Python SDK, where Hashgraph is not involved in. Yeah, that was the last point. Now we came to this additional considerations that was already there in the document last week, where we then have more concrete real-world usage examples.
All right,
so
great.
let me
Thanks,
now
Hendrik.
have a look at the questions or comments from Aaron. So diversity is expected to have more than 3 organizations. So I would say we have that. What is Aaron, maybe you can say something about that. What is your concern or question here?
Oh, in terms of project maintainers, I see some of the repositories, there's still majority less than 3 organizations.
Okay.
But I'm sure
I
like
mean,
looking how project is invested, I'm confident that it will improve.
So I think we have the problem, the challenge here that when talking about Hyro, we do not talk about one repo, right? We talk about, I don't know the exact number, near to 20 repos. And those 20 repos contains totally different content, starting from our server components, like the consensus node, over things like our SDKs up to documentation. And what we did in the past is that we onboarded a lot of people from the community that are not coming from the Hedera ecosystem, like Hashgraph or LimeChain. And what we learned is that the best way to do that is by starting things like documentation or SDKs. And when you look in those projects, you will see a lot of new contributors on the one hand, and on the other hand, new committers and maintainers. There's currently, for example, one new nomination of a female maintainer coming from the community for one of the SDKs that has absolutely nothing to do with Hashgraph. My wish is that as a next step, we can move those maintainers and contributors forward to the more complex projects like our server components, right? But that is, I would say, like our roadmap and the steps we are doing, like onboarding the people, getting them working on good first issues, where the scope in the SDKs is always the best one, help them to understand Hyro, understand what we are doing, and then as a next step, onboard them to things like Solo, the server components, and so on. Does that make sense?
Thanks for that explanation, Hendrik.
Okay, sure. So second one is finding the releases was not straightforward. What do you mean with releases?
When I was browsing through for finding which, like the release notes or what was released, the latest, I had to perform like several searches across repositories to figure out where the releases are and how the releases are maintained or managed. It was not
Yeah.
that straightforward to get to that info.
Yeah. So we do not have something like a release train. So it's not a thing that we say, I don't know, like whenever consensus node is released, everything else must be released with exactly the same version, right? So that is not how the Hiro projects work. The SDKs, as an example, can do their individual releases. The server components can do their individual releases because the thing where they all are bound on is the protobuf based communication model, and they then depend on a specific version of that to provide compatibility. And when it comes to things like our GitHub action or solo, then you even have again a totally different version range, because for the solo action or solo that is both used to set up networks on the fly for testing or maintenance or whatever, you can define for all parts, like for mirror node, for our consensus node, and so on, what version should be used. So it's not that version, let's say like 10 of solo means this uses version 10 of consensus node and mirror node. It's no, in solo, when you start it, you can configure what version of mirror node, what version of consensus node should be installed and executed in this solo maintained network, as an example. And I assume that this made the problems for you. Do I see that correctly? Because I would say we have, like in all the repos, we have tags, we have GitHub releases with the features, change logs, and so on. Or do you even see another point somewhere?
So in the past, like the way we have asked project teams is for them to have something like releases.md kind of a file, having a place where people can look into it, or as like the trail of all the commit history, commit hashes. That's another way to find where the releases would be present.
Yeah.
Or in the
So
document, if there is like a place which talks about here are the releases.
yeah. So my personal point of view here is having a releases MD file don't make sense anymore when working with GitHub, because GitHub releases are so much better. They highlight new contributors. They show who worked on that release. You have a very good overview on what have been done in that release, and so on. And having we checked that having a release.md file is a suggestion by LFDT, and it's not a must. So that is why we decided to not define it for the Hiro projects at every repo and project must have it. It's more that we say every project can decide, or every sub-project can decide. And for us, best practice is to do very good releases in GitHub, because they look good. You can click through as a human. Newcomers are highlighted, and you can even automatically read that by REST API, so that like in things like NPM and other artifact repositories, those information will automatically be shown for a given version.
Can I add
And
something?
Jessica has hands up. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you, Hendrik. So I was going to say that couple of months ago, or maybe 3 months ago even, Andrew Brandt from our team, from the release engineering team, he submitted a request to the TAC to allow GitHub releases to be accepted as a release log of what has happened in the releases. So that got approved by the TAC, and as Hendrik says, it does show in the community. The community is used to it, and the community can find easily the information that they're looking for. So I just wanted to remark that that was accepted by the TAC a couple of months ago, or maybe even 3 months ago.
Sure, Jessica. Thanks, Hendrik.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at Hiro block node, and that is a very good finding. So that is a totally outdated security MD, and that just need to be deleted. I totally agree on that. And Jessica and I will take care of it to just delete that file so that the global security MD from the .github repository in our org will be used. Yeah, it don't make sense to have that file. That's an error. It's a very good finding. Thank you for that.
No worries. Thank you for addressing. As I said, these were nitpicks, but otherwise the project looks really good and in good condition. Thank you for the proposal.
You. Any other questions or comments?
So I guess I have one, and I think it's more related to potentially what we have in our project lifecycle requirements and whether or not they are what we want to have in our project lifecycle requirements. So I think it comes back to the security section.
Yeah.
You know, seeing a lot of things that are zeros and non-tens. I know in our project lifecycle documentation for security, we had everything like must be tens or nines or should not be zeros, sorts of things, right? And so, you know, I guess my question for the TAC is, what are our thoughts on the strictness of what we've got listed here, and whether or not that is something that we, you know, think is appropriate, or we want to, you know, discuss further as we go forward.
Maybe I can give some additional insights here if you can go back to our table. And let's talk the token permissions, right? So token permissions is in a kind of state that the projects that have custom tokens and things like that, those are the projects where you see a 9 or 10. Like, for example, the Hiro SDK C++ repository. The others, and Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, are repositories that do not have custom tokens and do not have custom definitions, but use the global definitions for the Hiro org, which is already, I would say, like as strict as possible. And the problem that the Hiro JSON RCP relay has a token permission from 0 is not because we don't care and everything is allowed in that repo. It's either because there are no tokens used, or it's either because it's already everything that is needed for that repo done on org level, and therefore the OpenSSF do not handle that correctly. You are allowed in OpenSSF to create annotations to say like, oh yeah, this is a special use case that we have here, and based on this will don't make sense. Sadly, that does not affect the number or the outcome in any way. You know, you can say, you can annotate it, you can add metadata and saying, this don't make sense for this repo because the repo don't use it, or it's already defined in the org structure. But doing so is not reflected in the number. And from my personal point of view, that's a problem, because it would be really great if we as a TSC could say, look, we want to have this and those numbers, and that's a must. But if the reality is like we have it here, then from my point of view, it's not doable at the moment, and that's why I said we should maybe work together with the Open SSF working group to find a good solution here that fits for them and fits for groups like us that really want to use the Open SSF scorecards as concrete and hard guidelines to define the state of a project. And Jessica, you had hands up.
I had it, but you mentioned about the annotations. I was gonna say that
Okay, yeah.
don't affect the scores. But yeah, I mean, also what I was saying earlier that we have many of our rules and permissions at the org level, and tools like LFX and OpenSSF seem to potentially have problems with that.
Yeah, I think because of that, two things probably have to occur. One is we probably need to update our project lifecycle to reflect org level settings and how those apply, so that people, projects who use those org level settings, which probably will be most of our projects at this point, since we've moved to org level or orgs for our projects, would be able to specify, these are the things that we've set specifically at the org level and would apply to all of our repos, if you will. The second thing I think obviously is how do we create an issue, potentially a pull request against OpenSSF, right, to reflect these sorts of things, such that they, will potentially update their tooling at some point, right? If we don't let them know, then it's hard for them to know that they need to do something, right? And I think these are the pieces that, if somebody comes in and looks at, say, the OpenSSF scorecard, right, and sees these zeros, but yet it's not a zero, then how do people know, right? And I think this is the key, is how do we ensure that potentially those annotations show up here, right? That the TSC can say, yes, we recognize that this is a zero, but if you look at the tokens used for this, they're all at an org level, and therefore, all have the correct sort of permissions, right? The least privileged sort of permissions here. I think this is probably something that we need to work on with the OpenSSF to make sure that people who maybe haven't been privy to this conversation would be able to tell that, hey, this really isn't a problem for this particular repo.
Totally agree on that. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments before we talk about whether or not we're ready for a vote, Rama?
Yeah, I think since I think Hydro is the first team to apply for graduation since we codified those requirements, and some feedback, formal feedback would be good, because I think as you mentioned earlier, those we had particular ideas in mind about the difficulty of following those criteria, and maybe we need to revisit those assumptions. So anything Hendrik and Jessica you can give us, that'd be great. We can go and update the lifecycle requirements.
Yeah, definitely feedback would be useful so that we can make sure that, one, it's not onerous, right, to go through this process, and two, that the sorts of things that we're asking for actually make sense in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Sorry, just one more thing. I think in some of the guidelines we had said that you need all the repos to follow to satisfy a particular number, and some other guidelines we had said at least one of the repos. I think maybe that's where we can kind of relax it, because as we can see here in Hyro, or I mean, one of the repos that I was looking at naturally was Cacti, which has only one repo in the org. So we had both code and documentation and everything there, but clearly this is it's a different organization. It's quite well organized into I mean, different code modules and documentation lie in different repos. So all the criteria need not really apply to all the repos. So I think that's something we can definitely change in the criteria.
All right, thanks, Rama. Diane?
Yeah, I just put the comment in the chat, but perhaps we should create an issue against the project lifecycle content to address this so that we can track it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that sounds like a great idea. And then, we can have some of the, issues that that the Hyro team has discovered in going through this process, right? Actually document it specifically so that we know what we're looking to make changes for and that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know, is somebody volunteering to open that issue for us, or?
I can open it.
All right, sounds good. Any other comments, concerns with the Hyro proposal before we get to a vote?
All right. So I know Enrique had to leave, but we still have 6 people. So I think we can run the vote. So let's go through the list. Hendrik, how do you vote?
Oh, before we get there, we need a motion in a second.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to forward this.
Thank you. This is my first time. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I second it.
All right, so we have currently on the table to move Hyro to graduation. Diane has motioned, Arun has seconded, I think Hendrik actually seconded too. But yeah, go ahead, Jessica, and run us through a vote.
All right. So sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through the list. Please correct me if the process is kind of wonky here, but I'm gonna go through the list that I see of attendees. So Hendrik,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Enrique. Oh no, sorry, Enrique has to leave. Diane,
Yes.
Rama,
Yes.
Arun,
Yes.
and Matt.
Yes.
All right, we have 6 out of 6.
Thank you, everybody, and especially thank you to Jessica, who stepped up big time, helping us get all of our ducks in a row for this report. It was much appreciated.
No, thank you to
Oh,
both of
yes.
you, Diane and Hendrik. You guys, you guys were there to help a lot. Thank you so much.
All right.
Tracy,
Great.
Tracy, in the interest of time, I don't mind moving defining adopters till next week. I would
Okay.
like to have the lab stewards discussion because it's holding up a few other things.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll push off defining adopters to next week, and then yeah. So the lab stewards discussion. There was a proposal that was put out to increase the number of lab stewards that we have, and potentially do that by adding the TAC members as people who could approve lab proposals going forward, in addition to other people in the community who have volunteered for to be lab stewards. And so wanted to discuss that with the TAC, see the thoughts on that. So the issue here is that we have had a number of lab proposals that have come in this summer that have not been approved in a timely fashion or commented on even in a timely fashion because people have been away on vacation, and just things have life has gotten in the way for some of us. including myself. And so, yeah, I think the question is, what are people's thoughts on the TAC about allowing the TAC members to also be approvers? Is this a good thing, a bad thing? What do we want to do when it comes to increasing our lab stewards? Diane, I see you came off mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, it came off mute, but I couldn't find the hand up
That's
button.
fine.
I would be perfectly happy to have TAC members be able to approve. But I'd also like to see more lab stewards, and not necessarily from the TAC group. So maybe there's a way we can nominate from our different projects people to be lab stewards, or create not a contribution, but a lab steward ladder of some ilk to do that. But the having TAC members as approvers is fine with me.
Okay. Matthew?
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, I guess this is an area I'm not particularly familiar with, and how the labs are kind of administered and stewarded today. I certainly think I'd benefit from understanding a bit more about that. I don't think I have any concerns about members of the TAC also taking part in that role as well. But I don't have a huge amount of context on the lab side of the LFDT. So is there something we could kind of consume ahead of the follow-on call, perhaps?
Yeah, so we do have a labs website where basically it talks about the process to propose a lab, and then also the lab stewards. So this is a list of the lab stewards that exist today. There's 4 of us. And then there is information about what it would take to become a lab steward, which is basically just an email out to the TAC mailing list, because the TAC is responsible for approving any future lab stewards. And then there's a set of responsibilities for what it is that we're looking to do when we review lab proposals. So really within a week of submission, we're hoping that the lab stewards come back and look at the scope of the proposed lab to see if it fits within our mission, and then to see if the proposed name is appropriate, it's not too generic, confusing, or conflicting with other lab or projects. And then if there's an existing repo that is Apache 2 license and that the commits have been DCO signed off. So we have some information about what it would take. If it's doesn't have DCO sign off, there's 2 options. One, they can retroactively sign off the commits, or we just squash merge everything into a single commit that is DCO signed off.
Right.
When we bring that repo in, right? So
Thanks.
so yeah, I think the sorts of responsibilities are pretty light as it goes. We do talk about on a quarterly basis some of the information that we would hope that the lab stewards do. We haven't done a good job on this piece, right, which is providing a quarterly report to the TAC and looking at our labs to be archived, and also seeing if certain stewards have been inactive, and moving them to an inactive for emeritus type of state. So yeah, I think all in all, the responsibilities aren't great, and yeah, if you need more time, obviously, to think about this, that's fine. If this is enough, then happy to continue this discussion right now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a really good overview. Yeah, I guess like I say, I don't think I have any particular concerns about making this change. Personally, I have to drop now for a call in a couple of minutes. So that was partly the reason for my question, whether or not he's going to come back to a follow-up meeting, or whether it's being agreed on this call. But I do have to drop it in about a minute to prep for a call in a minute.
Okay, that's not a problem. But all in all, I think what I heard from you is you have no problem either way, if we allow the TAC members or not.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. I think that's my position. Yeah.
Okay, great. Anybody have concerns? Maybe that's where we should start, if somebody has a specific concern. Okay, I'm not hearing any specific concerns, so, you know, do we want to take a vote to allow TAC members to be the lab stewards?
We don't have quorum. As Matthew has left, so we might have to put it off till next week.
Okay, maybe let's see if we can do a vote on email. I'll send out an email and just see, assuming we could get like at least a motion in a second here.
I motion that I don't have a concern, but I would like to re-bring up the topic for other ideas that we can follow in the next meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
I motion. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Anybody who's still here would like to make a second to allow TAC members to be lab stewards and approve labs?
Second.
All right, thanks, Roma. All right, so I will send out an email just to the TAC list, see if we can get some voting happening there, so that we can, you know, have that taken care of sooner rather than later, because I do know there are a few labs waiting to be reviewed. And then, yeah, I think we'll talk about the adopters next week, and I hope everybody has a great week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.